Hi, this is Heather Freeman again. We're getting close to season 3 of Magic in the United States. The first episode will be out November 12th. Today, though, I want to share with you part of an interview with Silver Daniels, who we met in season 2, episode 2, The Church of Lucumí Babalu Aye. Silver's religious and magical childhood is a beautiful example of the kind of remixing that happens in the lives of so many people. Silver was actually raised Wiccan by his mother, and his path to Lucumí was a winding one. And I hope you enjoy the story. How do you identify religiously or spiritually right now?
That is a mixed bag, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I raised Wiccan. My mom owns a prominent occult store here in Long Beach. And so that was my upbringing. And then I evolved into Lucumí and hoodoo. So I guess religiously or spiritually, it's a really good question. I'm not sure how to put that.
No, this is perfect. Like we're actually just going to tuck into exactly that history. So just describing to me what it was like for you growing up in the religion of your home.
Growing up in the religion of my home, growing up in pagan Wiccan spaces, growing up in that community, and then balancing that, like having that at home, but having the regular world out in school and everywhere else. And then being a kid in the 90s when Wicca was really popular or was gaining popularity because of the films that were out at the time. One of the things that sticks out to me is people who were interested in Wicca or witchcraft gravitating to me or me gravitating to them, us gravitating to each other. And the recurring comment of, oh, that's so cool that your mom's a witch. You're so lucky. And I'm like, she's still a mom, right? Like, magic and stuff aside, like she's just a mom with witchcraft. You think that's cool, but it's not. You get in trouble and your mom grounds you. I get in trouble and a candle is lit and I'm grounded. Or, your mom tells you to clean your room and my mom goes, this room smells magically funky. Burn some incense in here. When's the last time you cleansed the space? That kind of thing. That's one of the things I think that really sticks out to me in terms of like my childhood. That kind of encapsulates my childhood is my mom constantly being like this presence, do this and do that, keeping me on my toes in that regard.
How old were you and what did that look like when you started to shift from the religion of your childhood and Wicca to Lucumí?
Yeah, there were a lot of things. I don't know if you remember or if this even occurred where you are, but over here in LA, back in the 90s and early 2000s, before the internet was what it is today, community was really in person in the spiritual pagan spaces. And there were these things called, we called them the circuit. At any given weekend, right, someone was hosting some sort of magical event or spiritual event at their home or at some location in the park or something like that. And you'd go to these. Sometimes you hit up 2 or 3 events in a weekend and someone would host a ritual or there'd be a ceremony or there'd be some kind of training. But these were events and occasions where you got to meet other people, other magical practitioners, and you got to see them do their thing, see them get down and see them show off their skills in some areas. And then also, because you're going to these things frequently, you see a lot of the same faces. And so you build a lot of connections and you make friendships and things that way. And I got a lot of teaching, or I met a lot of people that way who took me under their wing and taught me. So I got a lot of mentors that way. I end up at somebody's ritual up in Woodland Hills somewhere and in the sea of people like fainting because the goddess touched them or something, But in the midst of all of the woo, occasionally you'd see someone or you'd encounter someone who really had their practice down and they had a real skill with it. And it was palpable. Their skill and the power that was behind it was you couldn't ignore it. It was there. And I would always gravitate to those people. Like, wow, look at you've got something. Or I'd see someone do something really fantastic with herbs, or they lay down some knowledge or something. And, I would always find someone who knew more or was better at something that I was either working on or wanted to be. And I immediately was on that person, right? Like, I'm like, you don't know this, but you're my friend now. But in doing that, I met a lot of different practitioners. And so I got to learn a lot of different things. And all of that stuff has over time grew and has become a part of my personal practice, independent of all the different myriad of traditions that I'm initiated into. I still have something that's mine that is independent of all those things. And so then when it came around to Lucumí was interesting because growing up, the pagan community at the time, while they were aware of Lucumí and Santeria and the ATRs, there was this unspoken rule that, we keep a distance from that tradition and those people. So I grew up with that understanding. I kind of inherited that attitude from my upbringing that they're like us, they're different. And then eventually in my late teens, I made some friends who just happened to be Lucumí practitioners, and having the chance and the opportunity to talk to them about what they do and having discussions and comparing what I know as a Wiccan and what they know as an Olorisha, I came to realize that it's not much different than what we do. Like there's no difference, not that there's no difference, but there's a lot more similarities than what I had anticipated based on what was impressed upon me. So in doing that, I gained a respect for the tradition, but I still had a fear of it. I didn't understand it. That's ultimately what it was. So in Long Beach, we have a bunch of different, or at one time anyway, we had a lot of different metaphysical and occult stores down here, and very large and booming and thriving occult, magical, spiritual, pagan community. We still have one of the largest pagan pride events on the West Coast.
Huh.
And so someone at one of the local stores was hosting Santeria classes. A friend of mine, she's like, hey, I signed up. I don't want to go alone. She go with me. And at this time, I had become really chummy with the friends that I had made who were Santerian. And so I became aware of the fact that my fear was unfounded because I didn't know enough about the tradition at that time to be as fearful as I was about it. And I recognized that my fear came from other people telling me about the tradition who weren't in the tradition. And so I decided, I was like, yeah, I can definitely benefit from learning more about it because now I have friends who are in it and I want to learn more. Well, girl, here's the tea. So I go take this class and it turns out it's a total farce, right? And me not knowing anything about tradition, I can't call bullshit. Oh, can I cuss?
I believe we'll edit. Go for it. Yeah. We'll figure it.
But yeah, so me not knowing anything about Santeria at the time or Lucumí at the time, I couldn't say what was factual and what wasn't. I didn't have a frame of reference to inform my discernment. But I would say maybe 6 to 8 weeks into it, I started noticing some things. There was a portion where the teacher, he was teaching us this method for creating ritual space or sacred space. And he had purported that what he was showing us had been done for 5,000 years. And that's when I knew that something was up because this guy was drawing pentagrams in the 4 directions and calling on Orishas and saying that this was a 5,000-year-old practice. And I go, look, I don't know much about Orishas, but I do know about Western occultism, and this drawing pentagrams, tracing pentagrams in the air in the 4 directions is not a 5,000-year-old practice. We know where that came from. Like, it's documented. That's a Mathers thing. We got it from Mathers. Thank you, Mathers, and a Golden Dawn. That's where that comes from. So then I became intrigued. I'm one of those people where if I catch you slipping, I'm like, okay, what else you lying about? And now I'm intrigued. So I stayed to find out now what's going on. Like, I started this journey to learn more about Santeria. Then I realized this guy's full of crap and he's lying to me. So I'm like, well, how far are you going to take this? Like now I'm here for the show. And eventually the community, the OSHA community became aware of his presence. And Dr. Eddie Gutierrez, rest in peace, he was living in Long Beach at the time. He heard about this guy And as an initiate, he wanted to go and check it out because unfortunately, frauds and fraudulent people it's a reality. It's not uncommon for people to put on beads and all this fancy garb and present themselves as something that they are not to people who don't know any better. So because of that, Eddie went and investigated, found out the guy was not legit. And at the time, Eddie used to run this website, and it was a website where he would alert the public of fraudulent practitioners to help them stay safe. So he found out about the guy and all of the BS that was going on, and he put him on blast, right? Mm. And so eventually the guy could no longer operate because the wider community caught on to it and was like, hey, you need to shut this down before we shut you down. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So then 2 years after that, the woman who owned the shop where the courses were being held, we reconnected, and she goes, hey, you know, I found someone who's an actual legit initiate, and I showed her all the material that we got in that, what we called Wiccaria, that fake space. Oh, no. And she's legit. She's like, if you're still interested in learning, here's her information. You really should contact her. She was really lovely, really great. You should go talk to her. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I mean, I spent a year learning incorrect information just so for the sake of being corrected. Yeah, I definitely want to talk to her and I want to meet with her. So I contacted her. She invited me to come participate in a misa. And I went and brought one of my friends with me because I'm like, I don't want to go alone. And during the misa, we're sitting there smoking cigars, doing these prayers, wearing white, and the air was thick, not just thick with smoke, but thick with like presence. You know what I mean? And then someone gets possessed. It gets wild. It was, to me, you know, at that time, I was like, wow, this is outrageous. I can't wait to come back. So then, you know, here we are now 10 years later. And that woman, she has become my madrina. Mm. And I've been here ever since. And I've gone further and deeper, and I've learned so much. And it is an integral part of my life now at this point.
I love that. I mean, it's, yeah. What was the expression used? Wiccaria.
Oh, Wiccaria, yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that's going to need to be its own episode in like season 3 because that's a whole thing.
I will so be back for that if you have me.
Oh my gosh. Love it. Oh my gosh. That would be so fun. So fun. Hey, it's Heather again. I really hope you enjoyed that story. Sadly, we won't be getting to Wiccaria in season 3 of Magic in the United States. But we've got 6 great episodes, and we can't wait to share them with you. So have a wonderful and spooky October, and we'll see you November 12th for season 3 of Magic in the United States.